school academic advisors steered University of North Carolina athletes into sham classes over an 18-year period, but does not directly implicate coaches or athletic administrators. In the scheme, the report released Wednesday says academic advisors in North Carolina's athletic department colluded with the manager in the African and Afro-American Studies Department to take advantage of no attendance, no professor classes that eventually boosted athletes' grade point average and helped keep them eligible. The classes ended in 2011. The NCAA reopened its own investigation into UNC this summer, but it is not known whether it will take action as a result of this report. Stephen A., I'll ask you this. What do you believe the fallout will be from the UNC academic scandal?
I definitely think that their heads will roll. There are some people that would be fired. There's no doubt about that, because folks are going to get in CYA mode, cover your you know what. But I want names. I want faces attached to these names. I want these people to be summarily dismissed, and I want a more thorough investigation to find out exactly what coaches were involved. If you could get as far as to find out the information that you have already found. You got this professor, Julius Narangaro, or whatever his name was. He was the professor of record for many of the fake classes. You've got a woman by the name of Deborah Crowder. She also was involved in this game.
She's non-academic. She's not a professor. She's like an administrative assistant.
Yes. All I'm saying to you is this: administrative officials, professors, anybody who was involved in something this egregious, there is no question that heads should roll. And by the way, the NCAA should be involved in terms of potential sanctions. You're talking about years and years and years of potentially ineligible players being allowed to play and to participate, not because they went to class and got their grades embellished. They didn't even go to the class. It was a fake class.
They had to do a paper.
They had to do a paper, really.
Listen, with quotes.
Listen. We understand this. Primarily, it was supposed to be football players. There's an email that they have in the New York Times article where there was an email from one of the women's basketball coaches to the administrator. You're talking about 15 potential basketball players that may have been involved, 329 football players that may have been involved. Who knows what else? Something like this, as far as I'm concerned, the investigation should be far more pronounced, or at least the results from the investigation should be far more pronounced than this. And the fact that it is not reeks of something, of classism to some degree. We understand that the University of North Carolina is held in higher regard than most institutions of higher learning in this nation. If this were most other programs, who knows what would happen. I'm looking at this, the same repercussions should definitely apply to the University of North Carolina. You've got the chancellor, for crying out loud, Carol L. Folt, on the record talking about how UNC has already established myriad policies to prevent a recurrence, which means you're acknowledging that it occurred. And if you're acknowledging that it occurred, we need heads to roll. You can't have something like this happen. You can't have these individuals who are supposed to be going to school for an education literally being allowed to flake, not even being allowed to flagrantly bypass it, Skip. These people did it for them. And they're supposed to be folks that are responsible enough to make sure that folks are going to class and actually earning their grades. This is something I find to be very egregious. I'm sorry.
Okay, but can I ask the bigger picture question here?
Sure.
Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
About several issues here. Number one, just to be fair, in the big scope of things, you don't think this goes on in other schools in other ways, shapes,
or forms? Of course.
I mean, you say they go to school for an education. How many kids go to school just to play professional football or basketball?
Sure.
How many other professors that an athletic department is aware of are lenient on football and basketball players, and so that the kids are sort of funneled to their classes? Do you think that goes on at other schools? I do.
Of course.
So do I.
Now again, do they get away with just one sort of bogus paper? No, they have to show up to some classes. But I think there are a lot of kids. The term student athlete offends me because it's a contradiction, because we know that many of the athletes are not really students. And how many of those student athletes actually attend many classes? I don't know for sure, but my better judgment tells me oftentimes not many, especially during their sports term.
During their season.
Yeah, they just can't go to class. So let's be clear about that. But back to this. who are we kidding about the coaches involved? Because the report commissioned by the school basically let the two coaches in question off the hook. Roy Williams in basketball, and then Coach Butch Davis, who now does work for this network, in football at that time. Do I believe they had no knowledge of this? It's just hard for me to believe. They're too smart. I know both guys. I know Butch better than I know Roy, but these are smart men, and I just don't believe they were in the dark about what was going on.
I agree.
Here, right?
I agree with that.
Okay, I don't have any proof of that. The report gives a couple of inklings that could be proof of that.
Right.
Okay.
I guess where you and I are divided on this, Skip Bayless, is that I recognize that we shouldn't be surprised by any of this. I understand that, y'all. I truly do. What I'm saying is there's a difference between taking meaningless classes and having a laissez-faire approach to your grades or whatever the case may be, and literally having fake classes established by an institution where it's given the impression you actually take this class, you go to this class.
But that's a fair point. I'm thinking
that's my
in
point.
college, we knew of the classes to take where you get a GPA booster, but you're saying creating a class is a whole nother thing.
That's it. And when you bring that, don't tell me everybody's doing that.
Okay.
I don't believe that.
Okay, so we should actually pin this on this one woman who has since retired.
Deborah Crowder.
Yes, Deborah Crowder. Again, she was like an administrative assistant. She kind of ran the department. She's not a professor. She's not academic. But she felt sympathy for these struggling student athletes. She felt sympathy, and she thought she should give them a break by helping get them through with an A or a B+, and they all got A or B+. But what is stunning about this story, 1,500 of the, what's the total? 3,100. 1,500 were just regular students who also benefited from the fake class. They called it the paper class, because you needed to do one paper.
Which means the problem is far more pervasive.
1,500? Why did she have sympathy for 1,500 other kids?
That's right.
Who were just regular students. I have no idea.
So maybe it wasn't sympathy at all. You were just corrupt.
Well, it probably was also a little bit, everyone started to talk about it. They couldn't keep their mouths quiet. So you can't let one know
You would think that that is so egregious and so stunning that people would talk about it, and it would get back to the right or wrong people who would then say, hey, what the heck's going on? And the president in the statement yesterday said, this was so stunning that we still can't sort of get comfort.
So stunning over 18 years, nearly 2 decades.
One last statement. You ain't heard about nothing like that at Duke.